Hey everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota. I'm super excited. My daughter's a state champion. They won the 14UA state tournament in the state of Minnesota. Super excited for her. The Gophers beat USC. Upset alert. They didn't take the goalpost, though. Thank goodness, because I know they're fining schools. We'll talk about that with Sam. But also, the Vikings are 5-0. Heading into the bye week, nobody predicted it. I did predict 11 wins, though. And so I think that's going to come true unless 2016 rears its ugly head. We'll talk about all that and much more coming up next on The Ron Johnson Show.
Locked On Sports Minnesota Podcast. It's endless Minnesota Vikings talk with the diverse voices of your local experts. Now The Ron Johnson Show. On the field, in the broadcast booth, Ron Johnson is Minnesota sports. He's played with them, hung out with them, and grown up with all the big names in Minnesota sports. They're hanging out with Ron Johnson. It's the Ron Johnson Show on the Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast. And it starts now.
Hey everybody, it's Ron Johnson, and this is the Ron Johnson Show on Locked On Sports Minnesota podcast network. People, I'm Ron Johnson, former Gophers wide receiver, former NFL wide receiver, host of the Ron Johnson Show, co-host of Vikings Game Day Live, co-host of the PJ Flex Show. I do a lot of stuff, people, but the one thing I do the most, I love my Gophers. I love my Gophers, win or lose, right? But they won. They beat an 11, the ranked team, top 12, number 11. USC walked into Huntington Bank Stadium. And they walked out by themselves without any type of happiness. All the happiness stayed in Dinky Town. The Vikings, 5-0 as we talked about. But there's a lot of sports going on in Minnesota. We got so much coming up. We got the Daily 3. That's 3 questions. We're going to spend about 3 minutes each today because the Lynx, you got LeBron and Bronny. You got Sunday with no Vikings? What are you guys going to do? We'll talk about all of that as I bring my producer to the show. But I want everybody to know today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Win or lose, you got $200. So you place that first $5 bet. Whether you win or lose, it's fun to win, though. So make sure you tune in Friday for our locks because we're going to give you our locks on Friday. And mine continue to hit. I keep picking the winners. So you might want to tune in Friday because every week we give locks and I'm getting better and better and better at finding the locks. I almost had one. I should have took the one with Johnny Munt. I was going to take the over with Johnny Munt and he actually got 2 catches. So I would have won there too, but I did get my Justin Jefferson. He had 92 yards, I think, or 96 yards. And I said 80 plus yards is a gimme. And it was plus like 168 or something like that. So I hope you guys took that one, but $200 in bonus bets. Then you can use that. That's house money now. Now you can go bet on the Vikings. Bet on the Vikings to cover probably versus the Lions, but we'll see what that line is. Now, that's not my lock. Make sure you guys tune in Friday for the locks because we got some good ones. The Vikings aren't playing this week, so there's no locks there. But visit FanDuel.com to get started. Or you just download the FanDuel app too. Go to your phone, download the FanDuel app. But as I bring my producer to the show, it's bye week for the Minnesota Vikings. The Gophers are traveling into UCLA. And for those that don't know, because Deshaun Foster told us, they're in Los Angeles, not Louisiana. So I don't know if you thought they were the University of California in Louisiana. They are not. They're the University of California in LA. I think we all knew it was LA, but Deshaun Foster had to make sure he does. That's my guy, though. He's been on the show, but I got to get him on the show. I need to text him this week too, Sam. I forgot about that. I need to get him on the show. Maybe next week.
That'd be good.
Hey,
That'd be good.
Game, can we get you on the show to talk about the Gophers matchup and what you thought about the Gophers? So I'm gonna get that started early with him to say, hey, I don't want to get you this week. It would have been good though. I totally forgot. I literally totally forgot about it. But they could be the University of Calzones in Louisiana. I don't know. I don't know what the University of Crawfish in Louisiana. I don't know what we thought it was, but we all know UCLA is in LA. But again, new coach, rookie head coach. Had himself a moment at the Big Ten conference media day, and I don't think he knew what he was getting himself into. But the top of the day topic, Sam, is the Minnesota Vikings are 5-0. Nobody thought they would be 5-0. I definitely didn't. I thought 3-2 at this moment because I knew they could beat the Giants. I knew they could beat the Jets. I did say that. We did that on Vikings.com as I continue to talk about Because every time I bring this up, Nordo and other people are like, where is this video? Like, I'm like, go to Vikings.com. Go to Vikings.com, go to the video section, just search back to like August-ish is when we did this, like when the schedule was released, around August-ish. I think they aired it maybe June, July-ish. But I can't remember exactly, but I know it was in the summertime because when the schedule was released, we did like a prediction show based off the schedule. And I kind of gave my takes, and there's a stretch of games that I thought was fairly easy. And there was a stretch of games that I thought was hard. And this was the hard gauntlet. I added the Lions to this gauntlet as well, because in the first 6, if I'm not mistaken, I had them going 3-3. And it makes sense, Sam, when you look at the Vikings schedule, anybody, if you were to be a betting man, Sam, what would you have guessed? Like in the first 6 games?
I was more in the 2-3, 1-4 camp. I was, wow. and remember, Ron, I've got egg on my face here. I was anti-Darnold. I was not on the Darnold train like a lot of other people were. I didn't believe he was going to change, and I was wrong. And there's a lot of other good things to like about this team that I didn't expect, but I was super negative on it. And I thought this would be the week we'd be talking about, is J.J. McCarthy going to take over for Sam Darnold? Is this the time? That's what I thought we were going to be talking about. Instead, we're talking about the Chiefs and the Vikings alone atop the NFL.
Breaking news. The Minnesota Vikings have created a tidal wave. A tidal wave. On the way back from London, Sam, the Jets just fired Robert Saleh. New York parts ways with head coach. The 2-3 start 2024 season. Robert Saleh is the first casualty of the Minnesota Vikings defense, Sam. They are creating a tidal wave across the NFL. They have just gotten Robert Saleh fired in London. Imagine that. You just spent all that time across the pond and you return home and your key card doesn't work. So, Sam, we was not expecting that today, but we're talking Minnesota Vikings, Sam. The Jets fired Robert Saleh. Did you see that one coming?
No. Oh, my goodness. Jeff Albrecht is the interim head coach. That's shocking. It took all of 5 games, and you got to wonder if Rodgers had his fingerprints on this. Took 5 games with Rodgers and Saleh together. And again, Rodgers missed the whole year last year. And in those 5 games, it did not look happy, Ron, on that side. Like Rodgers had the little like weird shove thing with Saleh a couple weeks ago. He was really irritated during the game on Sunday. He was doing the finger wave, trying to get Hackett to move more quickly. I guess I'm not totally shocked because it didn't seem super like fun and cheery over there. But the fact that the Jets actually made that move, that's wild.
And Aaron Rodgers has his media obligations today. So I'm pretty sure it's going to become must-see TV to see how Aaron Rodgers responds to this. Is he going to say, like, it had to happen? Is he going to be humble, or is he going to be a jerk? Because at this point, he can be a jerk. Like, he could be himself now. Like, nobody really cares. Like, he's at the end of his career. He's a Hall of Famer. Like, nothing he does, and I think he knows that. That's why he continues to do the media stuff. Nothing he does is going to affect what people think about him on the field. But the Minnesota Vikings have been a casualty to many of quarterbacks, many of coaching staffs, and now this is one of the worst. The Minnesota Vikings beat them, and it wasn't like a blowout game. That's what's crazy about it. I mean, it started off kind of rocky, but the Jets almost won the game, and they fired Robert Saleh. Like, again, I could see if it was like a 25-26 to nothing kind of start or something, and it was like we got to throw to get back in the game. It didn't seem that bad that Robert Saleh deserved to be fired. So I'm very, like, Sam Darnold, imagine that. You get drafted number 3 overall. They part ways with you. You come back and play them, get your little revenge, and then you watch them fire their head coach. Even though Robert Saleh had nothing to do with Sam Darnold as far as draft him and all that. We know that was Adam Gase. But for Sam Darnold too, that's gotta kind of feel a little like, oh, okay, well, okay. I'm out here doing my thing. But yeah, breaking news. We love that happens on our show. Robert Saleh no longer the Jets head coach. But moving back to the Vikings, Sam, the Minnesota Vikings as a team right now, when you look at that start, I kind of saw it. I said they could beat the Giants. I said they could beat the Jets. Now, the Texans and 49ers and the Packers, that was the one. Those 3, I was like, they're going to lose 2 out of those 3. I just didn't know which ones because I kind of said like they beat the 49ers before at home. So I was like, it could happen again. I was like, the Texans, to me, with a young quarterback and Brian Flores, I was like, they probably can get to him, but I was like, CJ Stroud is really good. But I was like, that could be the one. And then the Packers, I thought being at home, the Packers would win that. So I was kind of thinking between the 49ers and Texans, they can win one of those. When I came down to the Lions, I said out of the bye week, and I have to go back and watch the video now because in my mind, I thought I said they lost. I thought I said they were going to lose that one, but I got to go back and watch the video myself now. But I put them, and I might have it on my notebook somewhere, but I put them on a loss out of that bye week. And so let's see if I have it.
Weeks that would have been a bold move to make the win.
I did. I actually no. Weeks 1 through 6. Yeah, I do. I do have them. I had them win. Well, let's see. So Lions, Rams, Jags, Colts, Titans, Bears. No, I had them losing. I had them losing to the Lions because I have them winning against the Rams, Colts, Jags, Titans, Bears. So I kind of broke it down the way we did on the show. We broke it down weeks 1 through 6, weeks 7 through 12, and weeks 13 to 18. So I had them 2 wins for sure, 2 losses for sure in the first 5-6 weeks, technically, because they have a bye. I did say they were going to win the bye week because I made a joke, about which I don't think they aired it because they were like, we can't put that on the air. But I made the love boat joke, like it's gonna be too cold to get on the boat, so we won't have to worry about any love boats. But weeks 7 through 12, I said 5-1. I thought they can run a gauntlet with the Rams, Colts, Jags, Titans, Bears, even though they're on the road. And that's what's crazy is they're on the road for 3 of those: November 10th, November 17th, and the 24th. They're on the road, as well as October 24th. They have 1 home game in that stretch of Rams. So in 5 games, they have 1 home game, Sam. 5 games, 1 home game. I still had them dominating all those road games and that home game. I had them lose to the Lions. And then when you go down to this one, so this is where I think I'm changing a little bit. Cardinals, Falcons, Bears, Seahawks, Packers, Lions. I had them going 4-2. I thought that the Cardinals are beatable. I thought the Falcons are beatable. I thought the Bears are beatable. I thought the Seahawks are beatable. I looked at it and I said, you know what? And I got to watch the video. I thought the Packers, Lions at the end of the season were going to be tough. I did say like maybe they lose to Kirk Cousins because he's going to come back and go off on a tear. And I said if that happens, they probably beat the Packers towards the end because it's going to be at home and they're going to be playing for playoff position. I didn't realize they were going to be playing for like maybe number 1 in the NFC at that point. Like they could possibly be playing for number 1 in the NFC. And I know the Packers want to ruin their day. Also now, which might happen, January 5th becomes very integral because that could be for the NFC North. Because it's not just your overall schedule. It is still your conference schedule too. And so the Lions, Vikings could be playing for NFC North champs at the end of the season. And so in that stretch, I said 4-2. And so that's where I got my 11 wins from. So I did have them win in 11 games. I had to make sure I remember that correctly, but I had them win in 11 games. And so again, people thought I was crazy. Oh, dude, really? 11 games? They'll be lucky if they, if they get 8-8, and then have a chance to maybe and then somebody said that they're going to go 8-8. And then the Lions are going to have pity on them because it's not going to matter to the Lions and they're going to rest their players heading to the left. I'm like, you clearly don't know Dan Campbell. If Dan Campbell has a chance to win a game, he's going to win a game. Now, he did learn his lesson last year, maybe about overdoing it and his players being exhausted in the NFC Championship game. So maybe that's why he would rest his. But now, no, this last game against the Lions is for supremacy. It might be for the NFC North Championship. So when you look at the Vikings, Sam, 5-0. The best thing about this, and we've talked about this before, is Sam Darnold. Like when you look at what Sam Darnold has done, you look at his stats, you look at his third down percentage complete, or his third down completion percentage. You look at his lack of turnovers. Like the one he threw was just he overshot the receiver. But other than that, like Aaron Rodgers had 3 interceptions. So to act like Sam Darnold isn't good is blasphemy. It's now a lazy take, in my opinion. I think people are being lazy when they do that. But now the Vikings are 5-0, Sam. Out of the break, let's talk about the Lions game. What are your thoughts on the Lions now having to travel after playing the Cowboys, travel to Minnesota and play the Vikings? After the Vikings are going to be rested. So that means they're going to get a lot of all their players back, probably that have like hopefully Aaron Jones, but everybody should be back healthy because they only had 1 injury coming out of that game, which was Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I know there's been some talk about Hawkinson coming back either for the Lions game or the Rams game. If he can come back for the Rams game, he can come back for the Lions game, right? This is his former team we're talking about. This is Detroit. I think you got to have Hawkinson in that game if he's physically able. That's going to give you a huge lift. And you know what I like, Ron? KOC having 2 weeks of prep for Dan Campbell and the Lions. That sounds like a pretty good opportunity to me to throw some new stuff at them offensively. Maybe KOC does a bit of a self-scout on why the offense has stalled in second halves, comes out with a little different approach. Maybe the Vikings offense takes a nice step forward coming out of this bye with the 2 weeks prep, getting TJ Hawkinson back. I would also wonder this, Ron. I said this on the football party yesterday. Would you consider inserting Dalton Reisner on your offensive line for Ed Ingram? Like, would you make that move potentially? Because Ingram's had some issues in pass protection. Is that another move you would make out of the bye?
I wouldn't. Like, I don't think, like, again, if they were losing games and they maybe lost some games due to some of the inefficiencies of of one of those guys, I would say, yeah, do it. But I don't think Ed Ingram has really done anything to deserve to be benched. What I would do, I would look at an opportunity to maybe get Reisner in there if he's back off and healthy. Because has he been clear? Has he hit that window, that IR window where you can come back on now and you have the 21-day deal? Is he
right?
His window
I
as
think
well?
he's eligible, but I don't think he's been activated like Hawkinson has.
So that's the thing. Like if they activated him, I would say, you know what? There's a chance he probably does play. If the fact that they haven't activated him probably feels like, I don't think they're as worried about him as much, and so like I think they're fine. I think they think they're fine. Looking at these stats too, and here's what's crazy about this with Kirk Cousins. Kirk Cousins is still up there. Like, we knew wherever Kirk Cousins was going to go, he was going to be a guy. That's why it's weird the Falcons, like, I don't know if maybe the Falcons didn't trust the Achilles or what, but they didn't have him come back. But Sam Darnold right now, Sam, if you look at passer rating, for quarterbacks that have thrown over, let's call it 70 attempts, because that means you played a couple games. You're not just a one flash in the pan. Because Malik Willis, we know he's 25 for 34. He's 122 passer rating. But that was, what was that, one game he played in place of him against the Titans?
Malik played two
games. So in 2 games. So if you want to put Malik, I don't think that's a big enough sample size to put him in this conversation as far as passer rating goes. But Sam Darnold right now, Sam, of the quarterbacks that are playing a lot, you got Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels. I would say those are all pretty good quarterbacks, right? Joe Burrow, Baker Mayfield, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels. The next person on that list, Sam, is Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is 5th for quarterbacks with over 100 attempts throwing. He is 5th. You got Josh Allen, who's behind him. You got Derek Carr, who's behind him. You got Kyler Murray, who's behind him. You got CJ Stroud, Justin Herbert, Brock Purdy, Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, Dak Prescott, Geno Smith, Andy Dalton, Patrick Jonah Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, Matthew Stafford. Sam, that's a lot of stars. And of course, Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers right now is at 81.6, which might be the lowest in his career ever. I'm gonna have to look that one up. But Sam Darnold, 103 passer rating. Did anybody see that one coming?
No. And you know what else impresses me? Like, yards per attempt. Darnold has been historically bad in that regard in his career, like terrible, like bottom 3, bottom 5 in the league with the Jets, with the Panthers. He's top 10. It's like 7 yards an attempt. That's really, really efficient, really, really good. And it bears out that when you have weapons around you and a smart play caller, good things can happen as a quarterback. And that's what I was skeptical of. I didn't know if that would outweigh Darnold's struggles earlier in his career, and it has. He's been a really efficient quarterback. And
are you looking at yards gained per attempt?
Yards per pass attempt.
So yards gained per pass attempt, he's actually 8.1. Don't hate on him. Don't give him 7.
I might be looking at the adjusted number, adjusted net yards per pass attempt. Total,
maybe.
Yeah, yards per attempt. Yeah, you're right, 8.1, and that's 5th in the league. So, whichever way you slice it,
he's good.
He's top 5, top 10. Yeah, and that part, the efficiency has been awesome.
And the names ahead of him for this: Brock Purdy, Jaden Daniels, Anthony Richardson, Jared Goff, and Sam Darnold. I don't think anybody was putting him on any of these lists. And that's why, like Fat Joe always says, yesterday's price is not today's price. yesterday's price of Sam Darnold is not today's price. And so we've gone a little long in segment 1 on the Vikings because we had to. It's worth it. But Sam Darnold and the breaking news kind of put us into a tailspin to start off the show because I did not see that coming. I did not have on my bingo card this morning that Robert Saleh was going to get fired. And so the Minnesota Vikings defense, again, is an absolute terror. They are terrorizing people as they go. But Sam Darnold, he's benefiting from this as well. Like he's benefiting from a defense that's getting off the field. The Minnesota Vikings right now, as far as first downs and that's every play, first down or touchdown percentage in a play, the Minnesota Vikings are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8th in the NFL at 21.5%, Sam. 21.5%. But you know what? 3.2% of all their plays have 3.2% of all their plays have become a turnover. It's ended up a turnover, and that is number 1 in the NFL, tied with the Green Bay Packers, of all people. Tied with the Green Bay Packers, Sam. And when you look at first downs, they're in the middle. So it's not like they're just dominating everywhere. They're dominating where it matters. They are number 1 in the league in interceptions with 11. They forced 3 fumbles. Sacks, they're getting after the quarterback, 19. They're tied for second in the NFL. But they're only seeing, here's the thing, they're seeing 258 passes this season, Sam. 258. The next closest team is 227.
Wow.
258. They've only faced 96 runs. The only defense lower than them in facing runs are the Detroit Lions. And that's why that matchup, Lions versus Vikings, is going to be an absolute, because their defenses are kind of right around each other. When you look at yards gained per play, you look at all this stuff. Yards gained per play, same thing. Minnesota Vikings, 3.8 yards gained per play. This defense is nuts. Like, they are absolutely just making people second guess. The number of plays faced. You could say all this good stuff, but then you're like, well, they haven't. 438 plays, Sam, the defense has been on the field for. That's number 2. That's the second most. That's not actually good. You don't want to face that many plays as a defense. That means you're on the field way too much. That means your offense is probably scoring pretty fast. But that means you're on the field way too much. Indianapolis Colts, 440. They're number 1, or sorry, the most, which is actually not good. Defense, 438. So the fact that they're facing that much, they still are in the top 3 for yards to go per play, meaning they are putting teams behind the sticks. So all those stats I love. I nerd out every once in a while with stats, Sam, because it's a correlation. Because I could say, man, it's 8.3 yards to go per play for them. People are gonna say, well, they're not facing that many plays. Their defense is getting off the field. No, they're facing the second most plays. They're out there a lot and they're doing their job. That's why, like, some of these, like, oh man, they're getting tortured. Look at all these total yards. Yeah. Total yards, they're giving up a lot, but they're out there forever. That's why. Of course you're going to give up a lot of yards if you're out there forever. But the stuff that matters, third downs, turnovers, yards gained per play, all that stuff, even though they're out there a lot, teams aren't gashing them. You're not getting big plays, like explosives. They're not giving up a ton of explosives. So with that said, man, we got to move on to the Gophers. In the second segment coming up next, we got the Minnesota Gophers. We're going to talk about that. We also got the Daily 3. Might have to shorten it down today. It's probably about 3 questions, about a minute each today, but we're going to do that after a word from our sponsors.
We're brought to you today by FanDuel. It's America's #1 sports book, because that's where you get big returns on your investment. And if you're a new customer, that investment only has to be $5, because when you make your first $5 bet, you get that hunch, you lay down 5, win or lose, you are given $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. And with that $200, FanDuel makes it really easy for you to spread that money around, spend it how you want on the lines, the over-unders, the future bets, the playoff action happening right now. Gigantic college football weekend coming up. I think there's 4 ranked matchups, including 2 versus 3. It's going to be unbelievable. FanDuel.com. Again, it's all the lines, it's all the leagues. Make every moment more at America's #1 sportsbook. Bet 5, get 200.
Well, the Minnesota Gophers, Sam, I usually grab all the stuff. I'm not doing that today. I'm not. It's just, we beat USC. Like, we act like we've been here before. We've beaten Penn State. We've beaten Ohio State. We've beaten Michigan State. We've beaten Michigan. Like, we've been here before. I'm not going to hype it up. We beat USC before. Or no, actually, no, I don't think we have. I don't know.
1955, I think. It's been
okay.
like 70 years.
So we haven't beaten USC since like the color TV came out. So we're not gonna, but let's act like we've been here before. And so the next step is UCLA. UCLA puts you in the win column of a positive 4-3. You beat UCLA. You travel down there 8 p.m. So that means getting on the plane, coming back. I was talking to some Gopher staffers who have to make this trip, and they were like, "Man, we probably don't get home till 4 a.m. at best. Like we're praying it's 4 a.m. And we pray it's no overtime. We pray like we could let's dominate this game from start to finish because UCLA is not good right now. They're not playing well. But I forgot what somebody always says, like a hit dog cries the loudest or something like it's a stupid saying. But you trap a rat in the corner, they can chew through metal. I do know that from Fast and Furious. Fast and Furious told me that one. You trap a rat in the corner, they'll bite through a metal gate. Like they can do. So the UCLA team right now is feeling trapped. I know Deshaun Foster, unfortunately, like it's my guy. But I hope they give him more than 1 year because in year one, he's basically taken over what Chip Kelly tried to build, which was like a passing, crazy air raid offense like he's had before in the past at Oregon. He had Dante Moore who committed to Oregon and then decommitted and came to UCLA. So he tried to get that. Dante Moore then transfers back to Oregon, only to see Dylan Gabriel transfer in as well. And not, he has to wait behind Dylan Gabriel now, which is probably fine. Give him a chance to learn, be a backup for a while, and then he'll take over next year because he clearly can play in the NCAA conferences because he's a big, strong kid and he's already done it at UCLA. But when you look at this team in UCLA and versus USC, two totally different teams. But the Gophers got it done, Sam, against one of the best teams in the country. You look at the top 10, top 11. They took Michigan down to the wire. Minnesota took Michigan down to the wire as well. So I would say those three teams are really good, even though people don't want to give the Gophers credit for that. You have to, like, men lie, women lie, numbers don't. They won that game. So heading into this USC game, Sam, 3-3, UCLA, they have to beat them. What are your thoughts on this? Because here's the thing. After that game, so if you look at the rest of their schedule, you look at the rest of the Gopher schedule, it actually like lines up for them to make a bowl game because that's the one thing everybody's talking about is where are they going to be? So you got UCLA, then you got a bye, then you got Minnesota, Maryland. Maryland comes to Minnesota. Then you got a ranked Illinois. We'll see if they're still going to be ranked at this point, but Illinois right now is 24th. You got Illinois. Then you got to travel to play 8th in Cal, like Madison, Rutgers. You got a top 10 team in Penn State, which they're still going to be there. Clearly, they're good. And then you got Wisconsin, who looks very beatable. And so I'd say Maryland, Rutgers, and Wisconsin should be 3 more wins for the Minnesota Gophers. They should have 7 wins there. Being able to, more than 7. Seven.
That'd be 6, and then UCLA. 7.
Yeah, I'm counting UCLA as a win already. I think that's fine. But I'm not going to get too ahead of myself. But I think Maryland, Rutgers, Wisconsin, I think those are 3 wins for the Gophers. If they stay healthy, Darius Taylor has to stay healthy. We know that's the key to this team. Without Darius Taylor, that run game does not look the same. That offense does not look the same. You got Minnesota, Illinois, and because Darius Taylor did not play against North Carolina. And I think that was the other difference too. Like if Darius Taylor plays against North Carolina, they win that game. I think it's a totally different offense with them on the field. You look at Illinois, Penn State, even if you call those 2 losses, which they probably will be, 7-5. 7-5. I don't know what bowl game that gets you into, but it's still a winning season. People aren't going to be happy with it, though, because 7-5 could easily be 9-3. If you beat North Carolina like you should have, if the refs don't cheat you against Michigan, you're 9-3, or an opportunity to go 9-3. We still have other games to play. But it probably changes their mindset against Iowa. Coming into Iowa with only 1 loss, they wouldn't have lost yet. They would have come into Iowa undefeated. Coming into Iowa undefeated, you probably get a different mindset of a team. Like that first half, they win, and then the second half, maybe they have the energy. Like it's just one of those things where, they have to get it together. Michigan, first half turnovers. You don't have those turnovers, you win that game. But Iowa is probably a loss anyway. Let's give them that. But those other 2 were winnable. So I'm happy for the Gophers. I'm excited to see because Darius Taylor is legit. 200 yards of total offense, 144 on the ground, 56 in the air. Kid's a receiver, running back. He's a Ricky Waters. He's a Christian McCaffrey type. I'm excited to see what Greg Harbaugh does with him because UCLA seems like a team you could just literally line up your bigs and run the ball down their throat and rush 60 times and treat them like Michigan and Penn State treat people. we're not throwing it. We're going to run it down your throat until you stop us. And I feel like that's what this game might be. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, the reason I would be a little cautious about this UCLA game is that UCLA's played a brutal schedule, really tough. Indiana, who's top 20, got smoked. LSU, top 15, got smoked. Oregon, top 5, got smoked. Penn State, top 5, got smoked. So I will say they haven't been competitive. They've not been competitive against good teams, but they've played good football teams. So they've had a gauntlet. I would say the Gophers have had a mini gauntlet here in the Big Ten slate. Iowa, Michigan, USC. That's a tough schedule as well. You want to guess what the line is, Ron, on FanDuel?
Let me guess. Gophers +3 or -3. I think the Gophers would be UCLA would be the underdog. So
correct.
Gophers -3.
You're close. You're close. Gophers are 5.5-point favorites.
Okay. Yeah. I figured that. I mean, I don't think they would give them a full touchdown. Even though UCLA is not playing good football right now. And UCLA, like I said, UCLA has the weapons. They just don't have what Deshaun Foster wants. And I think that's the key. You look at, a 1-4 team. They just got, they didn't get destroyed by Penn State. But 11-27 is an ugly score. But they lost to Penn State 11-27. Penn State is undefeated. UCLA is 1-4, so they're one of the worst teams in the Big Ten right now, if not the worst team, I think. Statistically, they're one of the worst teams in the Big Ten as well. And so he's got his work cut out for him. Like Deshaun Foster has a lot of work to do. And I think that's going to be the key for this game is Minnesota has to come out right away. It's going to be under the lights. I don't know what the UCLA fans are doing, if they're going to be there or if it's a split town and people are like the college people or LA fans, and they're just gonna, they only support USC. Who knows? We'll see. When your team's 1-4 too, people don't really want to show up to an 8 p.m. game. They rather be in the streets of LA. But we'll see. We'll see. But I think 5.5 is probably right. I think the Gophers should win by 14 though. I think this should be because the defense is really good for the Gophers. So I'm gonna say like a 20, maybe 21 points, like a 28-10 game, like 18-point win, 28-10. I think this should be like a signature Gopher travel overseas across the way West Coast trip, and then be able to make that, because coming back at 4 a.m. after blowing the team out is way better than coming back at 4 a.m. and losing. And I think that's what PJ Fleck wants to make sure he does.
Yeah, this is important. This is important for the Gophers not to let this momentum slip, because I think they reeled fans back in a little bit. I think they kept the interest in this season alive. Now you get to go to the Rose Bowl. You get to play in an iconic venue, take on an iconic program, even though they're down this year, and build a winning streak. Like you laid out, Ron, there's a chance to build a legitimate winning streak, gain bowl eligibility, and get people excited for a couple big ones late with Penn State, maybe a top 5 team, and Wisconsin, a trophy game. That could be a really fun way to end the year.
Yeah, when you look at like a lot of the stats too, UCLA is at the bottom. So you look at total yards, 261 yards total for them. They're at the bottom. Gophers, 333, so not far ahead, but ahead. You look at the team that was set up to pass, passing yards per game. We know Michigan is one of the worst because they just don't throw the ball, but Minnesota has the edge there. You look at rushing offense as well. We know Minnesota is going to be up there, but they're not far ahead. They're not far ahead as far as rankings. Minnesota has thrown the ball more. I don't think anybody gets that. Minnesota throw the ball more than they passed it. But 116 yards on the ground, one of which is because Darius Taylor had 10 catches in the game versus carries. So that Michigan game was part of the reason why they're only, but over 100 yards. It's still nothing to shy away from. It's just the Big Ten runs the crap out the ball. When you look at Iowa, 233 yards on the ground per game. UCLA though, Sam, do you know what their yards per game is on the ground?
No, enlighten me.
You want to guess?
On the ground, yards per game.
They are the worst team.
80.
Not even close. 64. They are. Yeah, so it's and the reason is because Chip Kelly doesn't have them set up to be a running team. The way he was recruiting, the way he was trying to get the Oregon type of offense, because that's what the Pac-12 was about. So they just got caught with their hand in the cookie jar. They were trying to build for the Pac-12. They left and went to the Big Ten, and now they have to literally start over and go back to when Deshaun Foster played, which is bigs up front, really strong front sevens on defense, and then a run, 2 to 3 running backs in the backfield that can get you some yards, and then 2 receivers, because they've never went like Freddie Mitchell, and I forgot who the other guy was, but they always had like 1 or 2 receivers. Like Brian Pauly Dixon was when I played, and then they would have like a really good tight end, and that was it. Like, and then they were strong, hard nosed. Then all of a sudden, Oregon comes to the mix with this passing offense, and everybody thinks, let's replicate that because Oregon is killing it. It doesn't work for everybody. UCLA wants to get back to running the ball, but unfortunately, they don't have the bodies to do it. And that's the tough thing about the Big Ten is if you don't have the bodies to handle the banging and the bruising, you're going to get demolished. Defensively, same thing. They're one of the worst. Purdue's the only defense worse than them. You look at yards per game, Sam. UCLA has given up almost 400 yards per game total. You look at Minnesota's defense, on the other hand, they are number 1 in the Big Ten in passing defense. UCLA is last. So you have the best passing defense facing the worst passing defense. And that's why it's scary, because in a game like this, you come into the game thinking we can run the ball down their throats. But at the same time, you're like, their rushing defense isn't bad. Their rushing defense is actually better than the Gophers' rushing defense, and partly because Minnesota played Michigan. We know that's all Michigan can do. I think they threw for 30-some yards that game. But when you think about that, this passing defense for UCLA is terrible. So now it's kind of like, man, this could be the Max Brosmer coming out party. Like, he could really probably throw for 300 plus, yards in this game. And I think that's another thing. Points. You look at points allowed. UCLA, other than Purdue, the worst. Minnesota, right in the middle, 15.7. So, Minnesota's defense is doing well. Like, they are keeping them in games. Max Brosmer is not making mistakes. The one negative to the Gophers, I mean, if you want to nitpick and find something, it's some of the special team stuff. Like, you look at kickoffs, you look at punts. It's just not like, again, I know a lot of people don't care about special teams, but when you talk about punts and not punts, like average punt and all that stuff, because we can talk about yards, blah, blah. Like, their punter's punting, he's punting well, but it's the punt blocks. It's the extra yards on kickoff return. Like, that's the things the Gophers have to do a better job of, because that's how you lose games on the special team side, and that's how they lost it against Michigan. So we got to jump into the Daily 3. I want to spend we do have more time than I thought we were going to have. We made up some time in the second segment. So we're going to jump into this Daily 3. But the thing about this, Sam, like I said, the Gophers could be 9-3 at the end of the season. Probably should be 7-5 if they do not beat the teams they're supposed to beat, which I named the 4. They, like, would you say PJ is like 6-6 even bowl game? Like, what record do you think puts PJ Fleck on the warm seat or the hot seat?
6-6 would not be very satisfying for anyone involved. It depends how they're losing. Is it lopsided? Is coaching seemingly a problem? Are they getting outmatched by worse teams? I got to see it play out. But I feel like PJ gets a really long leash here, because with PJ, you have an identity, you have a pretty decent recruiter, and I think Mark Coyle is probably terrified of having to start from scratch, like UCLA. Like, look where UCLA is at.
Yeah,
joining this big new conference with no momentum, and they don't have the guys they want to have on the team, and that's going to be a tough build to get them back. I think you don't want to be that, so you want to just keep rolling the dice year after year, have PJ try to recruit, keep him around, and just keep the culture alive so you don't have to build it back up.
I hate to say this, it took Kirk Ferentz like 15 years to get to where he's at, 15, 16 years. He had some downtimes when he first came in. We played against him. We beat him 3 out of 4 times. I think Hayden Fry was still the coach, which is so crazy. I feel so old saying that. Hayden Fry was, I think, the coach my freshman year. We beat him then, and then the next 2 years we beat Kirk Ferentz, and then my third year we lost to Kirk Ferentz. We got killed. I had a great game, though. I mean, I think I had like 7 catches, 181 yards, and 2 touchdowns, so nice. I was fine with that. But we got killed as a team because they were getting better. And then after that, they got better, because I remember somebody was saying that, like, they hadn't beat Iowa in Iowa since 2000 or something like that, or they hadn't beaten Iowa. Like, it was something stupid. It was something ridiculous. Or 1999, like, it was like the last time they beat Iowa in Iowa. I think that's what it was or something. And so when you think about that, Kirk Ferentz, give him 3-4 years. He started to win, but he wasn't great yet. Then all of a sudden, 10, 11, 12 years down the road, he starts putting himself in this Big Ten championship conversation. And then boom, like 15, 16, 17 years into it, he's doing it. Because like once PJ Fleck entered, like 18, 19 or 17, 18, Kirk Ferentz was kind of always in the running to be one of those top 2 or 3 teams in the Big Ten. So PJ Fleck's only on year 8. Like, I think you got to give Pete, like, you got to get to that 12-year mark because you'll start to recruit the guys and you have it going. Like, so many people get so gun happy with like, oh, let's fire the coach and move on. Move on to what? What are you moving? Like, what are you expecting? Like, no matter the coach, you're gonna recruit what you recruit here. There's no coach like Lincoln Riley couldn't come here and recruit what he's recruiting at USC or what he recruited at Oklahoma. It just doesn't work that way. Like, it's not the coach, it's the area they're in. You put a good coach in a great area, they're going to get the players. You know, look at Kalen DeBoer. That's not his team. That's Nick Saban's team. Nick Saban just got tired of NIL. So he was like, I'm done with this. But Kalen DeBoer, that's not his team. Washington, on the other hand, Kalen DeBoer was doing well with them. They did lose a lot of players. You bring in Jed Fish, and now you see the ups and downs of it. But they did just beat Michigan. Like, so you know, it's some of these, sometimes you got to look at it and say, is it the coach or is it the athletes? Because if the coach is getting the best out of them, if they're not getting in trouble, like we have to remember with college football, it's also about other stuff. Are these players getting arrested? No. Are they going to class? Yes. Do they have really good grades? Yes. They got into a bowl game because of their grades. Like, why are we acting like that's not a big deal? Like, of the 120 players, like 3 or 4 go to the NFL. Like, what are we doing? Why are we acting like that's not a big, like, there's schools that don't have draft picks in the Big Ten. Like, they don't have a draft pick. The Gophers continuously have draft picks. Like, and Drake Lindsay, he recruited this kid, 5-star kid, to come to Minnesota. Maybe let's let it play out. Like, sometimes you have to let it play out. You have to let it do what it does. Drake Lindsay, when you look at him, he's an NFL caliber body. He might be the first quarterback that we see and we truly are like, this kid can be that guy. You know, that happens. Joe Flacco went to Delaware, and the NFL found him. You're telling me Drake Lindsay playing on national TV every single week in primetime, if he throws for 300 yards a game, he's not going to start to get NFL looks? You're dumb. You're dumb if you think differently. And so I think you're right. Starting over makes no sense. But we got to get to the day 3. That's 3 questions, about a minute each, and we'll do that after a short pause. And make sure you guys check out our postcast after every Gophers game. There is no Vikings game this week, so there will be no postcast. Maybe we'll do an emergency, just random postcast of a game that we're like, let's talk about this game real quick and then get out. What does this do to the NFC? Maybe an NFC North emergency podcast of what happened, like Lions after the Lions, Packers and Bears play. Maybe we do an NFC North emergency podcast quick. But when you look at the Gophers, we're going to do a postcast. It's going to be late, people. So bring your drinks. Bring your snacks, your charcuterie boards. We're going to have a show. Grit your cigars because we're going to toast. I'm going to go get some champagne. I'm really getting champagne this week. So hopefully I don't shoot myself in the foot and I can't use it, but I'm getting champagne this week to have a little champagne. Just a little champagne to toast to the Gophers win. So make sure you guys tune in for that postcast. But we got the Daily 3 now, Sam. Take it away.
Lynx, Sun. Game 5 tonight. Winner goes to the WNBA Finals. It is at Target Center. Lynx are favored. Ron, what's the final score going to be? Who you got?
So I do say, like, these are the moments where you need your stars to show up, like Nafisa Collier. And if you think about what they've done there, there's been some games where, it didn't go her way. But in game 1, 70-73. Game 2, 70-77 went the Lynx way. Game 3, 81-90, the Lynx. And they should have closed it out in game 4, Sam, but they couldn't get it done. 92-82. You look at every game, it's been an uptick in the score every game. They've gone higher and higher and higher. Sam, tonight, I am going to say 92 for the Lynx, 88 for the Sun. And the Lynx move on to the WNBA final. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think that these two teams are both defensive menaces. It's going to be hard to score in this game, I think, in a Game 5 environment. I'm going to go a little lower scoring, but I'm also going to go Lynx, 78-75.
And you look at Nafisa Collier last game, 29 points. She's going to have to put up a 30 ball, I think. This has to be a 30 ball night for her. She has to LeBron James, Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, the moment and just say, hey, look, here's what I'm putting on the floor, because she put up 26 in the other win. She put up 29 in the loss. Like, she continues to show the world, hey, I am for real. You look at the other loss, the first game, and that's the one where a lot of people are like, ooh, brother, what is that? She only scored 19 points. It's not enough. It's not like 19 points for some players. You're like, oh, that was a good night. Like Bronny, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Bronny would love a 19-point night. Like he would relish a 19-point night. But when you're the best player on the court, you got to have more than that. And then game 2, they won. And here's what's crazy. They won and she scored 9 points, Sam. So I'm not saying that's the answer. That was a defensive juggernaut of a game. Like, they just put the clamps down. But she's got to go for a 30 ball. I think there's a 30-point night for her and a win. So now it's time to move on. What you got next?
Yeah, well, NBA. You and I have both been fascinated by this Bronny LeBron situation with the Lakers. They shared the court together in a preseason game to make some NBA history. But here's my question, Ron. 2 weeks from tonight, they play the they play the Timberwolves in a real NBA regular season game. So at that time, will Bronny and LeBron share the court in a meaningful basketball game against the Wolves?
I think so. I don't know like what capacity, but I feel like if you're gonna do it, you might as well do it early in the season versus later when you really need to like put the guys out there that matter. I just think they want that moment. Like opening night, Anthony Edwards, everybody's gonna be watching because Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves, made a big move with Zach Randolph too. So now you have this new look Timberwolves team without Karl-Anthony Towns. So I think that creates, like, I think the Knicks as well. Like, people are gonna be watching the Knicks too, because like these are two teams that both made the playoffs, both had a chance to go to the final, both couldn't get over the hump. And so now you swap. Does this help? Who benefits more from this? Do the Knicks benefit from having a scorer in Karl-Anthony Towns? Karl-Anthony Towns now, can he become the guy? Because when you look at the Knicks and the way they're set up, Cat doesn't have an Anthony Edwards there. He can be the guy. He can take all the shots. With the vice versa, Zach Randall now has a guy in Anthony Edwards. He can be the bully. He can play the post. So I think Bronny does play. I think Bronny, like, they want to get him and LeBron on the court because I think that was the first time ever father-son in the NBA on the same team, on the same court. So I think he does play, and then, maybe a couple more games, and then maybe he's relegated to a two-way guy in the G League.
Interesting. Yeah, I think it happens too, because I do think they want that moment, but I'm intrigued to see what the Wolves do against Bronny if they try to, get an ISO against Anthony Edwards and see if they can exploit that.
Did you see him, Pat? Did you see Bronny pass? LeBron passed the ball to Bronny for a shot, try to get his first assist with his son, and he didn't. It wasn't a bad miss, but he missed it. And somebody was like, "Imagine that car ride home. Like, yo, I tried to get you a shot, man, and you missed it. What are you doing?
I feel like the Lakers would be wise to kind of insulate Bronny and don't expose him at all, like more than you have to, because think about the scrutiny of someone like Caitlin Clark starting their first season in the WNBA. Bronny's going to be even more heavily scrutinized.
Correct.
And he's not ready for it.
No.
He shouldn't even have been an NBA draft pick.
True.
So I would hide him, honestly, but I bet they put him out there for a minute just for the moment. Last one. What game are you watching on Sunday, Ron? Vikes have the bye. What are you going to be locked in on?
So Vikes have the bye. I think we talked about this before. I'm gonna let you go first because you had yours locked in. I don't want to take yours. Who you got?
All right, Cowboys Lions.
Yeah,
is what I'm scouting the Lions. I want to see how they look off of their bye week on the road against a Dallas team that hasn't looked very good, even though they're 3-2. So I'm scouting Detroit. What are you doing?
So I do want to see Kirk Cousins against the Panthers just because it's Kirk. Like, Kirk is on his, like, one of his, like, this is the Kirktober. We know that. So in October, Kirk kind of goes off. So we'll see. He's already had a 509er. So let's see what happens in this one versus the Panthers. And the Panthers suck. Like, I was mad I picked the Panthers this week because I'm like, oh, Andy Dalton. I got food. I got so fool's gold, and I picked the Panthers this week. They are trash. And so I'm looking forward to seeing Kirk versus them just to watch it. I do like the Lions Cowboys because I do have the NFL Plus app. And so I will be on my phone because I'm going to be at my daughter's softball game. Let's be real. She has a tournament this weekend again, last tournament of the fall. So I'm going to be checking that out. And I'm going to have my phone up with one earbud in so I can hear the softball, but I can also, pay attention to the game. And then another one I'm kind of intrigued with just because, like, I want to see the NFC North is the Packers Cardinals. Like, because the Cardinals are, playing Minnesota at some point too. If the Packers can handle the Cardinals, then I think the Vikings have no problem because Kyler Murray right now is a problem. But I do feel like Brian Flores, like the way Kyler Murray runs around, and Brian Flores has the athletes to handle him now. When you look at Van Ginkel, you look at Grenard, you look at Dallas Turner, who's fast. I think Brian Flores has some stuff for them. But I want to see this Packers-Cardinals game as well to see how they handle that.
And if the Commanders lose to the Ravens, that's another good game, then the Vikings will have a 1.5 game lead for the 1 seed in the NFC if the Commanders lose.
Bye week. Mm-hmm. Wow. A bye in the playoffs. Well, that'll do us for today. I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Extra. Thank you guys for joining in and listening and watching. And wherever you're at, let everybody know we're here. We're going to be here all year long. Football season, basketball season, hockey season never seems to go away. And then baseball season. It is the the Tigers just tied it up with a 3-run homer on the Guardians. And so can the Tigers make it? We'll see. But I'm Ron Johnson. That's Sam Ekstrom. And thank you guys. Have a great week.